Allow me to take you back to 2012's Wreck-It Ralph for a second.
Your face is still red. You might want to hit it again with your hammer.
Oh, that's not blunt force trauma, ma'am. That's just the honey glow in my cheeks.
Okay.
Ma'am, I just gotta tell you. You are one dynamite gal.
Wow. You are one dynamite gal. One dynamite gal. Dynamite gal. Dynamite gal. Dynamite.
Get out!
All I said is you're a dynamite gal.
I said get out!
A trigger is an experience that triggers a traumatic memory in someone who has experienced trauma. A trigger is thus a troubling reminder of a traumatic event, even though the trigger itself need not be frightening or traumatic. Unfortunately, if you have been on Tumblr for all of a month, literally, the time limit of a new Tumblr user seeing the site's ugly side is a month. More often or not, you will quote-unquote offend someone. Now, that would be okay. On any other site, you could just apologize, talk it out, and move on if it was an actual offense. However, on Tumblr, people have taken to using a certain word to justify their quote-unquote being offended and their actual harassment of Tumblr users. This word is trigger. They will claim that something has quote-unquote triggered them and will proceed to send a person countless messages, usually under anonymous because, let's face it, Tumblr is just full to the brim of PABs. To cry and whine and bitch and moan. Now, some of you may be saying, well, if a person is actually getting triggered by something, you shouldn't be so mean and just try not to offend them. But herein lies the problem. Many Tumblr users are using triggers, which are an actual thing for many individuals who have post-traumatic stress disorder or have actually undergone a traumatic event, as a means of getting rid of something they disagree with or simply don't like. Let me give you a personal example. Back when I was part of a small fandom on Tumblr called Spandexverse, I wrote a fanfiction that depicted a lot of stuff along the lines of non-consensual sex, blood play, rough sex, etc., etc. And I put all that in a paragraph of warning text before a read more break that you would have to decide on whether or not to click it before reading. Tell me why someone went through all of those warnings, still decided to read the work, and then had the gall to send me a message talking about how my work triggered them and was offensive and that I should put warnings on it. You know, like the ones I put before the fucking read more break before the story! Oh, but that's just one thing. Another en masse case of stupidity has to be when people go to a tag that is dedicated to a certain ship or pairing or thing and then start filling the tag up with posts about how the ship or pairing or thing triggers them and how people who engage in this ship or pairing or thing are terrible. Gee, maybe you shouldn't have, I don't know, gone to a tag specifically made for the thing that's triggering you? For those of you who were curious, this last case was surrounding the popular Attack on Titan ship of Eren and Levi. And my personal favorite instance of abuse of trigger had to have been with the case of Tumblr user Vidente Fernandez. She's a prominent, very talented artist in the ever-declining Welcome to Night Vale fandom, who has had a bit of controversy surrounding her for a while. Why? Well, Vidente Fernandez wasn't her original username. She originally went by the name Nazi Nurse. For a while, things seemed fine. She would make awesome art, provide an incredibly rare, no-nonsense view on things. Something that is extremely rare to find on Tumblr nowadays. She was just real. Then the messages started. People demanding that she change her username because it offends them on a personal level, that she's a horrible person for having it, and yes, that it triggered them. Now, if it was a matter of her saying, "Hell yeah, I support Hitler, fuck those Jews!" then this would be warranted. However, she explained time and time again that the name was a nickname that her friends had given her back in school, so she decided to keep it. But was that enough? No! Because people still kept clamoring on and on with trigger this and trigger that. It was only when someone politely sent a PM that didn't have any bullshitting of the term trigger and simply said that they loved the artist's work but would feel more comfortable reblogging it if they didn't have to worry about all this controversy that she finally decided to change the name. I'm just going to quote what my good friend Renton's girl said to me when I told her about all this. I'm Jewish and the name didn't even offend me! However, the best things to come out of all that nonsense was the amount of rational response that arose, including this well-thought-out response from one Tumblr user, EasterLily92. I quote, "RE triggers. If bright flashing lights cause you to have a seizure, that's a trigger. If you were a rape survivor, or knew someone who was raped, and there's a graphic scene in the movie or someone making a quote-unquote rape joke, that's a trigger. If you were a war veteran and watch a war documentary and it causes you to have flashbacks, that's a trigger. But if you don't like someone's URL because it has the word Nazi in it, and after this person has explained numerous times that she does not support the atrocities committed by the National Socialist Party in any way, shape, or form, guess what? That is not a trigger! The only way this could possibly ever be a trigger is if someone you know, whether from your community or a family member, was a Holocaust survivor, or if at any point you were attacked by deplorable neo-Nazi skinheads. People this blogger had nothing to do with. Thank you and good night. I would actually suggest reading the whole post because there are some other bits of feedback, but the point is still clear. The abuse of trigger warnings is getting ridiculous. Not only ridiculous, but downright disgusting. You know, it's actually pretty damn ironic that so many people on Tumblr hate Homestuck, because all this trigger slinging is extremely reminiscent of one notable character from the work. Cankry motherfucking Vantass! This character, who Andrew Hussey deliberately developed to be a parody of social justice wankers after his brief stint on Tumblr, is known for speaking in overly lengthy conversations, filled with heavy-handed words to try and get his points across. Like many a social justice wanker. And he also uses the word trigger. A lot. Like every other sentence he speaks will have a reference to this term.
Now, I realize we've been at this for some time already, but at the risk of derailing the dialogue you initiated, and may I just say how thrilled I am that you did, Karkat, I would just like to qualify my entire analysis of your Alternian culture by saying that in contrast with life on Bepharis, while your people may have been engaged in violent, lethal class struggle for millions of sweeps, by no means does this imply that the Bepharan way of life was entirely without problematic elements. Perhaps even more disturbing and insidious for their lack of acknowledgement and open discussion, particularly as a consequence of what in my view were widely and dismayingly unexamined systematic social injustices resulting from the entrenched power dynamics in play. dynamics strikingly similar to those of your planet's markedly more bellicose iteration, which has only served to fully vindicate my hypothesis that such a hierarchy is really predicated on intrinsic dysfunction, and failure to shift all the usual narratives and undiagnosed problems into an open, judgment-free discourse, through which problematic issues are constructively channeled into more intelligently problematized avenues of discussion. Now, before I continue, it is only decent of me to warn you about certain triggers that are surely ahead in this essay. I mean conversation. Triggers include, but likely will not be limited to, class oppression, culling culture and violence against grubs, lucis abuse, complementary and analogous hate speech, pale filling, slurries and other concupiscent fluids, lifespan shaming, ableist slurs, prolix dissertation. Actually, maybe it would be easier for you to list your triggers, and I'll do my best to avoid those topics or navigate them more delicately, if at all possible.
Look, I don't mind if you have actually been through a traumatic experience and that you would rather not have that experience shoved in your face. I understand if some things are actually offensive to you. However, when you use an actual medical symptom to try and censor others on purpose, well, aren't you sweet? In fact, I have no doubt, but do be a dear and eat me out. Maybe I'm just the first to say this, yet I know I won't be the last. Trigger slingers, you need to stop. But hey, it's just a thought.